Okay. Welcome in, everybody. How are we living? How are we doing? Let me just make sure everything is popping off as per usual. Okay. Welcome. Let me just make sure of a couple of things. I'm going to mute this. Just testing, just testing. How is it? Smooth? Hopefully. All right, great. So I'm going to mute this and I'm going to just make sure everything goes good. All right. And welcome to the channel. All right. Hope it sounds good. Hope we're looking good. And let's get into it, right? Today, we are going over the meta tier list of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Ooh. I am your boy. I am your host. Today, Dreadcast. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the channel. I've been working on the channel for a while now, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't have the greatest of PCs. I'm working on it, so I'm doing my best, and I want to give you guys some Yu-Gi-Oh content because there's really not a lot out there. Some TCG, some OCG, a little bit of Master Duel. There's some tier lists, but haven't seen a lot of tier lists breaking down all the decks. So this is going to be a pretty long stream. Hang out, come in and out, give me your feedback, let me know what you think. If your deck is on here and you don't like where I placed it, let me know in the comments afterwards, everything like that. We'll discuss. But yeah, I'm Dreadcast, and welcome in. And I'm going to try to be doing a lot more videos like this, maybe throw some replays up there from from my Twitch streams. And don't forget, follow me on Twitch, same name, Dread_cast. That is DREAD_cast, CAST. Same name across the board, Twitter, where what you have you. Follow me on all these channels. My Discord is Dreadful Gaming. So follow me on my Discord and let's get started. Also, you can find me on Reddit, posting a lot of polls and stuff like that about Yu-Gi-Oh. Um, yeah, I kind of want to also address that. I know this is a tough game for newcomers, for new players, right? And to be honest with you, I understand. The barrier to entry is crazy. The game is very difficult and complex at this point with the format. But I will say, you can use me as an example. I am no expert at the game. I did play Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering back in the day for a while when I was younger. I am 35 years old now. I live in New Jersey. I don't know if you can tell by the accent, but I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. And, I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of Master Duel, I'm not going to lie. The paper game, the TCG, it's tough to get into that. I know there's a locals near me and I want to get into it, but it's expensive. So, you got to be really into it to do that. I think it's just fun to have a free Master Duel game. And for newcomers, I will say that you can join this game for free and collect a lot of gems. I will say Konami is doing a little bit better in terms of events, giving out gems, and allowing newer players to maybe get their feet wet with maybe making a couple of new decks and learning the game. But there's no way to really learn the game in Master Duel. You really got to go find forums, Reddit, Master Duel, the Master Duel Reddit, you know, YouTube videos, and there's not a ton out there on the Master Duel in particular, but I will be doing some beginner's guides. I will be trying to go over stuff. There's a lot to go over. I know it's a tough uphill battle to learn the game, and it was for me too. So for me, like Master Duel came out, I played. I made some bad decks I didn't understand how to play. I ended up wasting a lot of crafting points and URs and stuff like that. I didn't look stuff up because no one really told me anything, and I did it on my own. And it hurt me in the long run because I ended up with one deck in the end after like 2 or 3 months of playing when it first came out, and it was Dark Magician, and I couldn't make it past Gold 1. So I tried. I learned the deck very well, but the thing about Yu-Gi-Oh is you need to know all the decks. You need to know the meta. You need to know what's going on. If you really want to be competitive and climb the ladder, you need to know these things. If you want to play casually, you could do that as well. It's not a big deal. Have fun with it and play on the lower parts of the ladder. This is why I think Konami's doing a little bit better of a job over time, but they're still trying to grab your money. That's called money right there. By opening selection packs and doing all this stuff and, paying for gems. But it's getting better. There's more events. There's more way to earn gems. There's a lot more structured decks. There's more bundles coming out. They need to add more packs, a lot more selection packs and a lot more secret packs. But that'll come. People are making their voice heard about that. And then you have the fact that you can make any deck you want. Just you got to look it up. They're not going to help you except for the fact that there's a solo mode and a training. It doesn't really help you too much with that, except for really learning the very basics of the game. But the game is way more complex, way more in-depth than that. The archetypes are crazy. There's so much going on. But right now we're in a meta where we're past the tier 0 meta of tier limits, which is a really tough meta to get into for a lot of new players. So I understand if that was a daunting time period for you to join this game. But now we're in a meta where it's more balanced. I think tier limits is still the top deck probably, and I'll get into that obviously. We're doing the tier list here, but they're not what they used to be. They've been hit pretty hard. You got bestials now, which take care of a lot of things. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll try to get into it. But this isn't really a video for beginner's guides. I will make those, I promise. But for now, this is a tier list because I haven't done one since when bestials first came out. And now the meta has kind of shifted a little bit now that the Labyrinth, the Dreaded Conspiracy selection pack came out with Gen Raiders and Evil Eye, and had to add a few more archetypes and decks into this list. And as you can see here, let's take a look. We got a 75 decks / archetypes here, right? 75 total. I'm not going to count it for you, but they're all here. But I'm going to breeze through a lot of them. I don't want to make this a 3-hour long video. I'm not going to waste your time. Plus, there's a lot of decks I really don't know what they do exactly. I don't know what their win conditions are. I don't know exactly what their strategy is, but I do know of them and what they're capable of and how viable they are. And that's what this is all about. So the tier list here, you have a brand new meta here. So tier 1 is a meta-defining deck. These are the top decks. These are the best decks. These are the decks that, even if you're a mediocre player, they could probably carry you to maybe even master rank, right? And like I said before, Konami's doing a better job of trying to expand on the game. It used to be when I first started playing Master Duel that there was only Rookie, which is really just like a qualifying thing. It's only like 2 rounds. It's bullshit. And then you have Silver, Bronze, which is a joke. Silver, which is pretty easy. Gold, which back then was starting to get pretty difficult. Gold back then is sort of like the diamond now. So, because back then it was gold, then there was platinum or diamond, and I think that was it. There was only the 4 different ranks that you could make. So it was hard to stay and play like, for fun with casual experimental decks. You would have to stay in bronze or silver kind of. But now it's a lot easier to climb a little bit and also get wins, experiment with decks, because now we have a lot more ranks. Not just bronze, silver, and gold. We also have now platinum, which is after gold. Then you have diamond, which is after platinum. And then master rank, which is the top. That's where the really competitive people are, and you're going to see all the meta decks there. And that's what I'm talking about. Tier 1 meta defining decks. We're not in a tier 0 format with Telements anymore, otherwise I'd have it here. Telements is not a tier 0 deck anymore. So, but it is still extremely strong. But we'll get into that. Then you got tier 2, top contenders. These are decks that I think are very strong right now in the current format. They might not be the best. The tier 1 decks are obviously better decks overall, especially depending on the pilot. But top contenders, if they're piloted well, if somebody makes a creative deck list out of it, or, sometimes they're anti-meta and they really hurt the top decks, so they're just viable right now as it is, right? So this isn't always going to be the case for the future, but these are the top contenders. These are decks that you might be interested in if you don't want to be a meta sheep and play the meta decks and play mirror matches over and over again, which is really annoying, right? So that's that. Then you have tier 3, as you see right here. Competitive sleepers. I don't know why I named it that. No, I do. Competitive sleepers. This is a weird tier. I mean, honestly, you could probably just go like tier 1, tier 2, and then right to rogue. But tier 3 is an interesting spot. I think tier 3 are decks that are, like I said, if they're piloted really well, if there's someone who's dedicated to that deck, because there's a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players out there who are dedicated to that deck, like Heroes. Heroes is a big fan favorite deck. A lot of people love it because it's an anime deck. It's actually a pretty damn good deck. I think it's like one of the most solid, probably tier 3 type decks. Could be even tier 2, depending. You know what I mean? So it just means you got to work harder on it, be more creative with it, and it could be viable. It could be competitive. You could even take it to master rank or even master 1. None of these, out of these top 3 tiers especially, none of them are decks that can't make master 1. It's just some of them might take a little bit more effort, a little bit more creativity in deck building and things like that for you to get to the top. And I will tell you that as for myself, I did make master rank 5 for the first time last month at the end of the month with 2 days left. I did it, and I did it with Umi Control, believe it or not. Funny thing about it is, so, and that's a massive rogue deck. So if I could do it with that, you guys could do it too, because I am no expert at the game. I'm learning more and more. I'm getting new decks and trying my best, but you can do it. Diamond's a tough spot too, but that's where I am right now in the new season. I'm in Diamond 2, trying to make my climb to Master 5, but I'll get into that another time. Enough about me. All right, so Rogue is our 4th tier, the Rogue tier, where it says pilot needed. And I know I said with tier 2 and tier 3 you need good pilots as well, but you could learn the deck like a deck like Sword Soul. You could learn it pretty quickly. You don't need to be the best pilot, and you could probably do pretty damn well. When I'm talking about rogue decks, these are decks that really have some major issues and have real trouble versus a lot of other decks. One hand trap could ruin the turn, things like that. So I wouldn't recommend starting with a rogue deck if you're a new player, because you're going to have a really difficult time. I would recommend a tier 2 deck once I get into the tier 2. Maybe even, if you want meta, you're willing to, they're expensive, some of these decks. So if you're willing to spend the money or invest into them, sure, you can try. But be careful. Some of these decks take a lot of skill to pilot. Others don't, and we'll get into that. Rogue pilot needed. So you definitely need an unbelievable pilot, some of these rogue decks. But some of these rogue decks can make it far. I don't know if you heard about the North American YCS, the Yu-Gi-Oh Championship, where a kid took Cyber Dragons, which is a very, very rogue deck. This is TCG, by the way, and made it into the top 32. So, it's possible. If you're dedicated to a deck, you can do it. So even Rogue has an opportunity. Then I would say this is where don't even try building it. Don't even try playing it. If you do, play it in bronze or something and have fun with it. Because what are we doing? This is the what are we doing tier. It's like this deck is not viable. This archetype is not viable. Don't even mess with it. You know what I mean? So that's that right there. That's your tier list. Those are your 5 tiers, and we'll take it from there. Let's get into it. But before I do, just remember that take this with a grain of salt. Like I said, I'm no expert. I don't know all these decks. This is from what I've been seeing, and I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh every day, Master Duel, every day, at least for a few hours a day. I stream it on Twitch. Follow me on Twitch at dread_cast. You can watch some games, some replays. I will be posting more on YouTube of my replays with certain deck profiles, etc., etc. Also, shout out to my man DC Plays. DC Plays. Shout out to my boy. What a Dugan. He's popping off on YouTube right now. Check him out. He does a lot of deck profiles and stuff, and he's been really chill with me, and we've been sort of supporting each other and trying to push each other to help the game, help ourselves, and grow, and as well bring new players in. I think that's one of the biggest things that Konami is having a difficult time with, bringing new players in, and I understand that. So I'm going to try to help with that as well. But let's get into it. All right, so this is the meta tier list of end of July. It is July 25th. We got a ton of decks here. I just want to, reason why I did a ton of decks is because most tier lists, they're short, 25-minute videos. I get it. It holds your attention. But this is for the people who are really interested in all the different types of archetypes and decks they can build. Also, when I say archetypes and decks, there are certain things in here that are decks. There are certain things in here that are archetypes. They're all archetypes, but certain archetypes are like full decks. You know what I mean? Other archetypes can be hybrids with other archetypes to make full decks. And that can make it a more powerful deck, right? And other archetypes are just little engines. Engine, keyword to newcomers. Engine is a small, little functioning piece of an archetype. It might be only, 12, 13, 14 cards of an archetype that are very powerful, that work within other decks as an engine to help facilitate the deck, right? So keep in mind of these things, because I will say which ones are good archetypes or engines and which ones are good decks in general. And also, I won't be going over like Sprite Melfi, Sprite for hire. I'm not going to go over every Sprite variant. If I put Sprite in here, it's obviously Sprite at its best. Whatever the best variant is, whether it be for hire, pure Sprite, or whatever, that's the one. So the top, deck of that archetype, right? So, all right, let's continue. And anybody who's joining, welcome in. Catch me live here doing this. Usually I try to record these things, but I want to do it live because I think it'll be fun. All right, so this is in alphabetical order, which I don't like. I tried splitting it up, but it's kind of annoying, to be honest with you. And we got a ton of decks here. So I'm going to randomly try to pick out some decks. Maybe we'll go with some of the new ones first, since the new selection pack just dropped. And in the new selection pack, we had 4 new archetypes, not 4 new archetypes, but 4 archetypes overall in the new selection pack, which is the Dreaded Conspiracy pack. We had Generators is one of them. Interesting deck, very cool deck, by the way, but definitely wouldn't say a top contender or a top meta deck. Evil Eye is another one, which is interesting. And then you have Labyrinth, which is a huge deck. Got some huge support and has definitely shifted the meta in one way or another. And then we also have the Trap Tricks, which is a fan favorite. A lot of people playing Trap Tricks, been running into it. And a lot of this is that's why I say take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of this is going to be based off of what I've been seeing over the last 4 or 5 months, but also recently, because this is the current meta, and just the decks I've been seeing, and also what I just know on like masterduelmeta.com and from tournaments and all this other stuff. This is all taken into account as I rank these, because it is sort of a little bit my personal opinion, but I'm trying to be as objective as possible. So bear with me here. Also, when I'm done, leave some feedback in the comments. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Please, I would love it. I appreciate it. And I will do a lot more of this if I see the support for it. And I will work hard to make it a lot better as well. So, all right, here we go. Let's start with the new archetype generators. As I said, here's generators. That's Har, one of their main deck boss type monsters that comes out. I could have used their big boss, the generator big boss, but it's all right. All right, so where does this deck belong? Generators is, I don't know if it's a new archetype. Like I said, I'm going to be very real with you guys. I don't know all these decks. That's why this is going to be quick, even though it's 75 decks and archetypes. But I have run into it a few times. I haven't seen too many people playing it in general in the ladder. But like I said, I'm in Diamond. I've been sitting in Diamond for a while because I made Master 5 last season. So I got dropped down to Diamond for the new season. You know how that works. And it is what it is. That's the archetype. It got some new support. It's got some really cool boss monsters. I will say, when it gets going, this thing could really like beat stick you. It's like an old school beat stick deck with some really cool effects for some of their boss monsters. But I think there's got a problem. I think it has a problem with bricking. I'm not too sure, but this is what I hear, that it could have. It has a big problem with bricking sometimes. But it does a lot of neat stuff. I don't know if I'd recommend it for a newcomer, by the way. Like I said, I don't know the deck well enough, but I have played it a few times, beaten it a couple times, lost to it a couple times. It can be very overpowering. I just don't think it's a deck. Like, is it a meta-defining deck? Absolutely not. Is it a top contender? I don't think so. I don't think you'll see enough people playing it to make it a top contender, right? I think you'll see it once in a while, people who like the deck or want to mess around with it. So you might see it in like silver and gold a little bit here and there, maybe even platinum, because it does have that capability. Like I said, it has the capability to go really far. If somebody really invests their time into it and really tries to build it, intelligently, and, deck building is a big part of winning games. But I will put it in Rogue. Competitive sleepers, I don't know if it's there yet. Just got the support. I can't say it's a competitive sleeper at this point. I think it needs a really, really good pilot. I think it needs someone who really knows the deck inside and out. But I think it also could surprise a lot of other people, because not a lot of other people know what the deck does. Like I said, I don't really know everything the deck does. I do know that, like, the Har and their XC's boss monster, and these are like all rank 9s, by the way, big monsters. They can beat you down, bring out big monsters fast, and they could also pull monsters or cards from your field and attach them to their monsters using cards like their generator boss, the shadow boss, I think it's called. And this guy can also has some serious disruption. Like I said, I'm not going to get too far into it, but I think Rogue Pilot is, Rogue is a good spot for this deck, because we have to see more. We have to see how far it goes. Right now, it's got hype because it just came out. So if you go to like masterduelmeta.com, which I'll pull up right here, this is the latest top decks. If you see, you got Tearlaments, 62 decks right now. You got Sprite 39, Labyrinth popping off, of course, Dragon Link, Branded Despia, the usual suspects, Sword Soul, Trap Trick's getting a lot of love. Like I said, fan favorite. Exorcisters, always really good in this meta. But then, as you'll see, Rika, another great deck. But then you'll see Evil Eye out of nowhere in front of some decks like Emancipator, because people are just trying to play them because they're newer. They got new support, and generators are up there. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they're great decks. Just means that a lot of people are playing them, and they're putting the decks lists out there, and that's the deal, right? So, all right, generators. If you're interested, take a look. It could be. It's got cool artwork and stuff too. I would be honest. I think artwork is a big deal, in my opinion. If you want to have fun playing Yu-Gi-Oh, this is how you have fun. You don't need to have the best meta deck unless you want to be that type of person that competes at the very top level, and you don't care about being loyal to a certain deck or another, right? All right, the next one is Evil Eye. Can we find Evil Eye? I never heard of the deck in my life. Where's Evil Eye? You think I can find it? It would be under E, right? What's this? Evil Eye. That's exotic. There it is. Evil Eye, right? So that's like the Evil Eye, I guess, boss. I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know much at all about Evil Eye. This is a new thing to me. But what I do know is I did watch Decade. I don't know if you guys watch Decade. He's the one who does all the leaks on masterduelmeta.com, and he does a lot of good work on there. He puts up videos and he puts up tournaments, and they do a lot of good work over there. So check them out. Also for newcomers, great place to start, masterduelmeta.com, and also just watching Decade, and he'll go over combos of new decks and new selections, and he'll make predictions on what's coming out next, etc., etc. And Evil Eye was a deck that was in, I think, the top 16 in one of his tournaments. So people are playing it, but I think once again, this is a rogue deck. I don't think until we know more, until there's more creativity, more builds out there that could really compete with the meta out there, and really make an impact. I don't think it could be anywhere else besides Rogue right now. It has a couple of cool functions. It has a really good, I think it's a field spell or a continuous spell, something like that they use. That's extremely powerful. And then they got some other, basically they put up one big boss monster, and I think that's it. And then they equip spells to it, and it becomes a huge monster that's very hard to take out, and they beat stick over you. It's a really interesting strategy because it's just like this one monster that you got to take out, but it could just literally OTK you with the amount of how big of a tower it can be with the equip spells and all that. So I think that's the gist of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of sounds like Marincess a little bit, but maybe a little bit more powerful and probably a little bit less efficient. So rogue deck it is for now. I will put generators ahead of it slightly. It really doesn't matter. But I think generators maybe have a little bit more going for it, a little bit more versatility. But still, interesting strategy. Look into it if you want. Evil Eye. There's plenty of deck profiles on masterduelmeta.com. So, rest of the pack. So, I will do Trap Tricks next because it is part of the new selection pack. And Trap Tricks, there they are. There's the little Sarah. Trap Tricks Sarah, their boss-esque monster that, it's a tricky deck. And I've been seeing it a lot, by the way. I've been seeing Trap Tricks a lot lately. I think people just love this deck. And it's also, and this is a deck I know a little bit more about. Obviously, it's a control deck. That can combo a little bit, though. It actually can it's like mid-range almost. Whereas Generators, I think, is more of a heavy combo deck. Trap Tricks is mid-range to control because what it does is basically it tries to bring out their main deck Trap Tricks monsters. A lot of them are unaffected by trap hole cards. Trap Tricks use trap hole cards, hole as in HOLE. Hole cards are, just these traps that basically can destroy monsters, banish monsters, depending on what they are. They've gotten some new support, some new trap support for this. Sarah allows you to basically continuously get resources through summoning monsters and then adding these normal hole traps to the field, and they could quickly overwhelm the field and overwhelm you with their monsters and everything. The only thing is their monsters are kind of weak and small. So if you skill drain them, for instance, and you got big bodies on the field, it's pretty much over for them. It's very difficult for them to out a big boss monsters. Like Psychic and Punisher, for instance, would be a difficult out for them. Like they have trouble with that. But it's great against back row decks because Sarah, for instance, the boss right here, is very, very good. It's unaffected by all trap effects, and there's other extra deck monsters like the Xyz monster, Pangilla, I think it's called. There's Adipus. They got a lot of variety of monsters, and they're unaffected by trap effects. So if you're playing like Labyrinth or something like that, or Stun deck, this deck can kill you very easily. You just got to be careful, and it's a fan favorite because another thing is about it is, and just like in Master Duel, where one of the biggest issues with Master Duel, I think, is that you flip a coin, one person goes first, one person goes second, and usually almost every deck wants to go first. There's very few decks that want to go second. So it sucks going second, which means you, and especially in a best of one format like this, you can't just not play going second cards in your deck. You have to play a certain amount of going second cards depending on what type of deck you're playing. You can play a lot of hand traps, or you can play some board breakers, whatever the case may be. But Trap Tricks is apparently one of the best going first decks out there in Yu-Gi-Oh! Even though I wouldn't say it's a super powerful deck or anything like that. I think it's just a very popular deck. But I will say it is competitive. I will put it in tier 3 competitive sleepers because it can win games. It can steal games. If it goes first, very hard to beat going when it goes first. So it's got that advantage. 50% of the time, it's got a huge advantage. Although I will say I did play a Trap Tricks game recently where they did go first. I was playing Labyrinth, and I ended up beating them anyway. And the reason was because of skill drain and because of I had big bodies on the field, like Lord of the Heavenly Prison and Lady Labyrinth of the Silver Castle. So there you go right there. Trap Tricks. Definitely an interesting deck, I would say, if you're just joining the if you're just joining Master Duel and you're a newcomer, building those gems, play those solo modes, do as much as you can to build gems up. Maybe you could build a couple of these decks. And I think Trap Tricks is not a bad first deck to build. So there's a little newcomer guide advice thrown in here. Not a bad deck to start with because I don't think it's too expensive. It might be a little expensive, but you also have the selection pack. So, open up the selection pack. You'll probably get a bunch of Trap Tricks. And you can do the same with Generators and Evil Eye as well. So, there you go. Those are the selection packs if you're interested in building any of these type of decks. And they're all pretty cool. Not going to lie to you. I don't personally like Trap Tricks, but a lot of people do. So, there you go. I'm going to put it in tier 3 competitive sleepers. I don't think it's really much better than that. Like I said, great, very good going first, going second, not so much. All right, now let's get into other things. I want to do Labyrinth, but because it was part of the selection pack, but Labyrinth's a very powerful deck, and we're going to get into the powerful decks. Now I'm just going to pick decks at random. Okay, who's this? This is Melfi. So Melfi is one of the things I was talking about. Melfi is an archetype where it's not a deck. Like, nobody plays it as a deck. You play it as the archetype and as an engine. Try to learn these words if you're a newcomer. There's decks, which can have hybrids of archetypes within them, or it could be one archetype. It all depends. And then there's archetypes. Archetypes are specific cards that work well together that are like Melfi's. They're all called Melfi. There's Melfi this, Melfi that, Melfi Penny, Melfi Caddy. They're all Melfis. That's the archetype. Okay? And then there's engines. Engines are the best cards that people use within an archetype to fit into a deck to help it run better. You cut out the fat of the archetype, basically. An engine is cutting out the fat of the archetype and making it a well-oiled machine within a freaking deck, right? So Melfi's is an engine, really. And where it's best is with Sprite. It works extremely well with Sprite because they're all rank, level, whatever, link 2s. I say rank 2s. Don't mind me. I really mean level 2s. But I say rank for everything because I'm not that bright. But they're rank 2s, level 2s, monsters that do a lot of things. They bounce back from the field to the hand and they keep coming back. It's like they have this recursion from hand to field. And then it's very easy to get into their extra deck. And then their extra deck does a lot of good things like basically there's Merry Melfi's, and then there's another Melfi card that can negate a card on the field, and you can't attack with that card. So, and it just works really well with Sprite, because Sprite always builds a big board where they have all these different things, like Sprint can bounce a card back to the hand. You have Masquerino, which they could turn into Avermax, and then it's very hard to attack through them. They could even make Herald of the Arc Light with the Melfi. So there's a lot they could do with it, and I honestly think Melfi's with Sprite, because like I said, I'm going to go with the best version of the archetype, or the best version of the engine, archetype deck, whatever it may be. And because with Sprite, it works really well, especially in Master Duel right now. I think it's probably the second best Sprite type deck, besides like For Hire, or maybe Sprite Pure. It's up there. It's top 3. I'm going to put it in tier 3 competitive. It's hard to say, man. I'm going to put it there because on its own, it's nothing. On its own, it's rogue, or what are we doing? But because of the Sprite synergy and synergy with other decks, I'm going to say it's in the competitive sleepers area, because not everyone's going to play Sprite Melfi's. They're going to play other things too. So you will see Sprite Melfi's a lot, but you'll see other types of Sprite as well. Maybe even Runic Sprite Melfi or so. I don't know. You get all these types of weird variations, but the engine is very good. Let's put it that way. The engine is very good, so we're going to put it into competitive sleepers and leave it at that, because that's what it is. So don't look at it as a deck. Look at it as an archetype or an engine that can bolster, a full deck like Sprite, right? All right, so what else we got? Exorcisters. Exorcisters, my worst nightmare, my arch nemesis. I can't stand Exorcisters. The Stepsisters, oh no, the Stepsisters I can't stand, because I lose to them so much. But lately I've been doing a lot better against them because of Labyrinth, because I recently got the Labyrinth deck, and it actually does decently well versus Exorcisters. Before that, I was getting crushed with my Punk Bestials deck, and any other deck I came across that I played against Exorcisters, I get killed. So they're my arch nemesis, and they just kill me every time. I dread facing them, but they're a very good deck. And I think a lot of people they kind of sleep on Exorcisters. You won't see it too much, but you will see it. Say you play 10 games, and I'm talking about, I don't know if you're going to see it in the lower parts of the ladder, but I haven't been below Diamond in a while. So, I'm not trying to flex over here or anything, but anyway, saying I'm in Diamond is not a flex. But I haven't been under Diamond for a while. I've been floating in Diamond and high Diamond, low Diamond for a while. So what I see is what I see, and I see Exorcister probably once or twice every 10 games, which is a decent amount. It's a good deck. It's a solid deck. It's a simple deck. Newcomer alert. Could be a deck that you might be interested. I don't know how expensive it is. I think it could be kind of expensive. It's got some really good extra deck monsters, but it's all Xyz monsters, so it could get locked into that. And that could be bad, because there are ways to, like, Dimensional Barrier is a killer for the deck. So there, it could definitely hurt, right? But what it does is, basically, the strategy is, its main deck monster, Martha, comes out, brings out the other Exorcister monsters. They turn into their Xyz monsters, which are Michaelis, Magnifica. There's other ones, Caspatel, and they all do different things that include banishing. I think one of them banishes a card from the graveyard, from your opponent's graveyard. Michaelis could banish a card when a monster effect is activated or something like that. Magnifica can attack twice, and it's 2,800 attack, and it could just banish quick effect on sight any monster, and it could do something else as well. Plus, these cards add spells and traps to the hand, like Michaelis adds a spell and trap to the hand on its turn. And then, they just get, these really good, just the cards within their archetype are just so powerful. Like their traps, Returnia, and Vetus. These cards are excellent. They banish cards, just in case their monsters get hurt by, just in case their monsters get outed or can't use their effects, or they get negated or whatever, impermed, whatever the case may be. They have their backup plan, which are these traps, which can, basically allow them to Xe summon into a new monster, so now they get a fresh monster on the field just in case it gets negated, or they could banish a bunch of your cards and then you're out of resources. It's very difficult to play against. But I will say that my charger. Okay, I will say that it can. I don't know what's going to happen with the upcoming formats, and I'm trying to include the upcoming formats in this because it's very, it's very, it's going to be very different at some point. Cash Tira is coming out. That's a tier 0 meta deck in the TCG at one point. Now, I don't think it'll be like that when it comes out in Master Duel because they're not going to have. There's going to be certain things that are banned. Like they're not going to be able to lock all 9 of your zones. I know a lot of people are worried about that it's going to be broken. I don't think it's going to come out like that. I think it's going to come out with a lot of preemptive hits on the ban list. But it's still going to be extremely powerful. And that deck is going to kill Telements. Even though Telements is still good right now, that deck kills Telements because it's all banishing, just like Exorcisters. But it's just like a much better version of Exorcisters. So Exorcisters could become completely unviable once Cash Tira comes out. So I will say, be leery of building Exorcisters. I don't know how expensive it is, so if it's too expensive, maybe don't do it because the next format might not be great for the sisters. Okay, the stepsisters might be on their way down to the rogue tier. They'll always be around and they'll always be kind of good, but they're never gonna. I don't think they'll ever be tier 1. That's for sure. They're sort of like this floating deck that changes with the format. They could be as high as tier 2 and as low as rogue, depending on what the format is. And as long as Telements is good and viable and a top deck, I think Exorcister is also good and viable and one of the top decks. So actually, right now I'm going to put them in tier 2. They're a top contender because they could do a lot of different things. They're just versatile and very simple to play. So if you're a newcomer and want a simple deck, it doesn't have big lines of play. It's very much a control deck that has very small, short lines of play and can easily beat a ton of opponents. Just a strong deck. Plain and simple. Just a strong deck that relies on banishment. So there you go right there. Exorcisters. Pretty cool, pretty cool. For hire. Very, very much like Melfi's. Not a full deck in particular per se. More of an archetype that's an engine within other decks to make them stronger. Because For Hire can do a lot of great things when it comes to efficiency and consistency. Oh, my leg. For Hire can be very powerful within the right deck. And usually, of course, with Sprite, it works really well. Of course, we always talk about Sprite because Sprite is just an unbelievable engine, an unbelievable archetype that could fit in so many other engines. And that's what makes it great. If you notice, the top decks and the top archetypes usually can play with a lot of different hybrid engines and archetypes within it because of their versatility and their efficiency. And For Hire just adds more of that to these decks and these archetypes. So I'll put it right here with Melfi. I think it might be a little better than Melfi, to be honest with you, as an archetype, very strong within the right deck, right? So, moving on. Fluanderies, everyone's most hated deck of all time, baby. Let me just stretch my leg out. Excuse me. Oh, my leg hurts. So, Fluanderies, very hated deck. Not the most beloved deck out there. But, sorry, I'm getting a couple of phone calls. It is what it is. It's Fluanderies. And I think it's funny because in other formats like TCG and OCG, you don't really see Fluanderies like up there on the tier list and up there in terms of being played heavily. They still get play. It's still a very good deck. It's a very niche deck. It's a very interesting archetype that literally has its own complete style of play. It's one of the very few decks that literally uses all in archetype cards. It doesn't really use outside, staples, and it doesn't combine and make a hybrid deck like Sprite and Melfi. It is its own thing, and it literally does everything that every other deck doesn't do. For instance, most decks special summon and combo off into crazy things. Flandreese, they normal summon, normal summon, normal summon. They never special summon. So they're unaffected by Max C completely. And Max C is a huge part of Master Duel. So just because in a best of one and everyone plays Max C, this deck plays around Max C. That's why it'll always be kind of viable in some sort of meta, because it'll never be like a bad deck. Let's put it that way, because it's always going to have that going for it. Also, has great trap cards and spell cards. It has its field spell, even though it's been hit a million times, the deck is still good. It summons a million times, normal summon, normal summon, normal summon. It also banishes, so it doesn't care about banishing. It can play all the banishing cards it wants. It could play D-Shifter if it wants. It could play all the pots. It could play all the things that it doesn't use the extra deck, so it could, it has that advantage. It has every advantage that every deck that's like anti-meta, like a control deck or something, has, and some. You know what I mean? It could do so many things. And then its boss monster is Empan, which is basically a floodgate, because then everything has to be put in defense position. Otherwise, you can't use its effects. It also can easily go over the top of monsters and becomes a tower because it has another effect. And then they have Ryza, and Ryza is one of the big monsters which can basically, I think, bounce two cards. One card from the graveyard, one card from the field, one on the bottom of the deck, one on the top of the deck. So double bounce from Ryza. And then they have another one called the Apex Avion Miss Valley. That card's basically an Omni Negate. So they have their own Omni Negate. They have a card that disrupts and bounces two cards. And then they have their Floodgate Empan. Very powerful, very powerful. And also a cheap deck. So newcomer alert. Want a cheap deck that works really well right now. And I think will be good for a long time in Master Duel, as long as Max C's around and stuff like that. That uses every mechanic, the opposite of everything else. The only thing I would say is if you do play Flandreese as a new player, you might have fun learning it and everything, but you're literally not going to learn the main mechanics of Yu-Gi-Oh! With Flandreese, because it literally does the opposite of what the main mechanics in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are. So not the best deck to learn the overall game, but definitely a cheap deck, very cheap deck, extremely cheap deck, and that's why they keep hitting it probably. Comani wants to make money, so they don't want people playing Flandreese too much. But cheap deck to get started with, and it's very good. And by very good, I mean tier 2, top contender. Still, I haven't seen it as much lately, so I think it's going to be like bottom tier 2, maybe even tier 3. I don't know. I think I'm going to put it in tier 3, top of tier 3, because it's starting to die out a little more. Keeps getting hit. Empan is down to 1 now. It's a strategy that certain other things can completely screw it over. You imperm their first normal summon, they can lose just like that. It can lose so fast, but also can win so easily the way it's conditioned. So it's interesting, but definitely a really cool deck to play if you want to just get started. But I'll just let you know that most people hate the deck and can't stand the way it functions. So that's that right there. But I'm going to put it top of tier 3. It's definitely very competitive, and a sleeper at that. It can win games. As long as Telements, once again, it's like Exorcist. As long as Telements is really viable, it really hurts Telements. It's a very anti-Telements deck. But once Kashtira comes, once again, I don't know where this deck's going to go. I don't know if this deck is going to drop all the way down to the rogue, of obscurity, like into rogue obscurity. I really don't know if it's going to happen. We'll see. All right, next we got Grass Piles. Grass Piles. That grass looks greener on the picture. The 2 of card that all these 60 card Grass Pile decks are playing. You could call them I wouldn't call them a Shizu Chaos decks anymore, because the Shizu cards just there aren't that many anymore. There's just, they've all been chopped down to 1, except for Kekbek, which is at 2. Freaking Kekbek. To me, it's Grass Piles, because they use grass. Hopefully they hit grass, which is a 2 of in a 60 card deck, which they always hit against me, by the way, for some freaking odd reason. And then what they can do is they could just mill their whole, like, mill 20 cards in their deck because their deck is way bigger than yours. And that's how grass works. And then they could start popping off effects from the graveyard and doing all sorts of stuff. Now, how powerful is the deck? It's been around. It's been doing better. Now that the Ishizu cards have died out a little more, it's actually helped the deck so that it doesn't get killed by Telements. So, actually a little stronger than it used to be, but I don't think it's like, I don't think it's definitely not a meta-defining deck. Is it a top contender? It can be. It depends on the grass pile you're playing, and there's so many different ones. You could play like branded with Telements. You could play branded Telements with Punk, with all types of mixes of decks can be put into grass piles. So it all depends on what it is. But I think just the fact that it's 60 cards, it relies on the 2 of grass, that grass is greener. And, yes, you have all different engines in it, which could make it difficult, and you could brick a lot at times. I've been seeing a lot of grass decks brick, but and also it's very expensive because you really want good cards in every single part of this deck. You're playing a 60 card deck, it better be every card better be good and efficient. And that's the problem with the deck. I think it's not completely great and efficient. I will put it at the top of tier 3, even ahead of Flaanderies, as a deck because I'm seeing it everywhere and it is kind of powerful. It can be really good. It's definitely just bricky, and you don't know where you're going to hit. You don't know where you're going to get into. Maybe the top version of a grass pile would be like a branded Telements, but I'm not going to count that as grass pile because that's branded or Telements. So, grass piles, tier 3, competitive sleepers, a good pilot, and a good deck builder especially might be able to do it. Definitely don't recommend for newcomers. I'll tell you that right now. All right, what do we got here? Eldritch. Eldritch, it's gone. It's gone. It's what are we doing? I wouldn't even put it in Rogue at this point. I do not see Eldritch at all. I haven't seen Eldritch in forever. I think it's just crushed by everything now. All the meta decks kind of kill it. The floodgates are all gone, and it relied heavily on floodgates because it could play under every floodgate. Every floodgate's at 1, except for there can be only 1. And it's just not a viable control deck anymore. This used to be the premier control deck, Eldritch. It used to be the best control deck when Master Duel first came out. Everyone was playing it. And up until not too long ago, a lot of people were still playing it. But it just got power crept by even Trap Tricks and Labyrinth, of course, which is the best control deck. I even rather play Umi Control. I think it's a better deck than Eldritch right now. It's just the floodgate thing killed them, and it uses the graveyard a lot, and it's all dark monsters, and with the Bestials out there, it's just a mess. It's just a terrible format for them. So don't build Eldritch. It's a what are we doing situation. Unless you really love it and just want to have fun with it, you're not really going to go anywhere with it. You're going to get killed. Adamanticators. I put Block Dragon as the cover. I should have put an Adamantipator. Block Dragon is the reason why Adamantipator is so powerful. Adamantipator, very powerful deck. Super combo deck that doesn't use the graveyard that much, although it does use it. It does a lot of excavation of rock monsters from the deck. I've seen grass piles with Adamanticators in it, basically. And a lot of times you'll see engines in it, like Vernisylph is an engine because it's an earth-based engine. So the whole thing is earth-based type monsters in this deck, but mostly rock. A real hardcore Adamantipator deck is using rock earth monsters, which is what Block Dragon is. Block Dragon is just a broken card, one of that just keeps summoning itself over and over again by banishing 3 earth monsters from the graveyard over and over again. And then it could just keep bringing out more things and comboing off. And then the end board is okay. It can be really good. If you stop it a little bit, it could be hurt by it. So that's the problem with it. It's just like it combos off to crazy stuff, but it really relies on Block Dragon a lot. And without it, I think the deck would be significantly worse. It's tough to say where I put it. I think for now I'm going to keep it in tier 2 because of Block Dragon, and because in this meta with Tearlaments still being the top deck, it does extremely well versus Tearlaments because it doesn't have dark monsters or light monsters, so it doesn't really get hit by the Bestials from Branded. It doesn't really get hit by Tearlaments because it doesn't use the graveyard that much. It doesn't really get hit by Sprite, although that's a crazy matchup. It would just be combo craziness. It can do a lot of different things. It's pretty versatile. A very strong deck. I don't know if I recommend it to newcomers. I haven't really played it, but these very high, super heavy combo decks can be very difficult to pilot. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend them to new players, but definitely something if you're familiar with the game and you want a new deck to play that's definitely a contender that you won't see too many mirror matches. Emancipator is not a bad pick. I'm going to put it in tier 2. I think it's actually pretty damn good. What's this? Earth Machines. Earth Machines or Infinitrack or whatever you want to call it. Going second deck that puts up big Earth monsters, Earth Machine monsters. It's machine type monsters that are also Earth that can, do a lot of crazy stuff and kind of OTK you going second. That's what it wants to do. The problem with the deck is it's kind of slow. It needs a lot of things to go right. It can brick pretty heavily, and it can be stopped pretty easily as well. So it's just this like logging big deck that can do things and combo off into really big stuff. But that's if your opponent lets you do that. So it's not really the most viable, right? So to me, it's Rogue. And I'll put it behind Evil Eye, I guess. It's pouring outside now. I know a lot of people love this deck. It's a fun deck to play, I will tell you that. But it's just not really viable at the moment. It's just too plotting. It's too slow. And modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is fast. Things happen in turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. Boom, it's over the game. This thing, wants to go second. By the time you go second, the way the boards are built in today's Yu-Gi-Oh! These going first decks build crazy boards, these combo decks, and then you pretty much can't do anything. So it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work right now. It needs something more. It needs new support. But it definitely could be something in the future. And the right pilot could definitely take it a long way. I will say that. Goaty. Goaty of the deep. That's that Goaty monster. What a beautiful archetype in terms of artwork and everything like that. Awesome, cool archetype. I actually have this deck, and I don't have a lot of decks. I have like six decks total, to be honest with you, that I play on Master Duel because I'm not spending a ton of money on the game. But most of my decks are control decks, except for Punk. But I do have Goaty. Interesting deck, very fun to play, very hard to pilot. It's all about timing, banishing. You do a lot of this stuff on your opponent's turn, and you could also kind of get crushed if your opponent like ashes you on your first play with, let's say, Lifeless Leaf Fish, where you're sending a shift to the grave because you need your tuners to get to the grave and then into the banish pile for the next turn because they come back from the banish pile onto the field, and then you could start getting into your bigger monsters and start banishing. But to get there could be difficult, and if you get stopped at the very beginning like that, you pretty much lose. If you don't, and you get to go further and get to go into those plays, then you have a really good chance of winning. So it's literally like a coin flip. It's like it's a 50-50. It's a good shot you're going to win if you get past that initial, opening of trying to, you're not really comboing. You're just literally trying to get your rank 2s into the banish pile, and then you get a couple of rank 4, level 4 monsters on the field, and then you try to build up into your synchro. It's all synchro. Synchro 6, which is Ariampos, and then you go into your Synchro 8, which is Ascan, and then you could banish something, and then at the very end you could get into Goaty of the Deep Beyond and banish the whole field, and then your Goaty comes back, and based on everything that's banished, it becomes a huge beefcake, beat stick, and you can win like that. So it's just not super viable. It's, once again, slow, right? And it could get stopped on one play. So for me, it's just Rogue. I will put it ahead of Infinitrack. I will put it high Rogue because it is not a bad strategy if you can pilot it. if you could figure out the timing and if you can make a nice build that actually is efficient enough that can do a lot of things, you can do damage with this deck, and you could bring it to master. But you might have a difficult time. You're gonna have to practice it and work it out. A lot of synchroing and all water based synchro monsters too. So keep that in mind. All right, heroes. Everyone's favorite heroes. Heroes, heroes. We love heroes. I hate the most, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just like I'm like a villain. I'm kind of like a villain. I like I like the underdogs. I like the decks no one cares about, no one knows about. I don't like the fan favorite decks like Trap Tricks and Heroes because it's just like, ugh, I don't want to be a fan favorite. I want to be a heel. You know what I mean? I want to be a damn heel. And Heroes is too much of a fan favorite for me, but good deck. Out of all the anime type decks, probably the best, if not second best. It's one of the best, one of the top two, because it has Dark Law, as you can see in the picture. That's like their boss monster right now, especially right now. Great card. Basically, Dark Law comes out, and any cards that I don't know if it's any cards or any monsters that are supposed to go to the grave or get destroyed. Any cards that go from anywhere are banished instead. So I don't know if it's monsters or all cards, but basically it banishes everything that is supposed to be sent to the grave or, wherever else, or destroyed or whatever, right? So, and also it plucks a card from your hand when you draw a card. So, really, really ridiculously good card. Sometimes annoying to get to. There's a lot of other plays you got to do with elemental heroes, and kind of got to go into these other plays and make sure they go through. But you can also stop it pretty easily. So I think it's kind of balanced and can be very good. And it's also very good in the meta. I don't know beyond this meta, in the Kashtira meta, I don't know how great it's going to be, but a dedicated pilot, a really good player can do work with this. So I am going to put it in tier 3 because it is competitive. It has Dark Law, it has Plasma, which is another monstrous card. It has DPE, which I haven't seen too much in the profiles lately, but it's got weapons. The thing is, it just doesn't have enough efficiency and enough different combo lines to go into to subvert expectations. You know what I mean? It's kind of predictable. I would say it's right here. It's above Trap Tricks to me and Furhire and Melfi because those are just engines. You could even put it ahead of Fluandereeze, but I just think Fluandereeze is such a tough deck. All right, I'll put it ahead of Fluandereeze. I don't think I'll put it ahead of Grass Piles, though, because the Grass Piles can be all types of crazy stuff that take you by surprise, and they're really good sometimes. The right pilot can crush you with a Grass Pile, by the way. Hero, same thing, but there's a lot more versatility with the Grass Piles. You know what I mean? So, moving on. Cyber Dragons, like I said, very recently, I don't know if you guys heard, but in North America WCS or YCS, whatever it was, that's for the World Championship for Yu-Gi-Oh! A guy made top 32 or top 64, I think it was, with Cyber Dragons, which was pretty crazy because it's a deck that no one has seen in a long time really top at all, anywhere. And that was the case. So that just shows if you're dedicated to a certain deck or archetype, you can make it work. But in reality, I wouldn't really recommend Cyber Dragons. I have been seeing it here and there. I think it might be getting supported sometime soon. And it does have one of the coolest boss monsters, like its ultimate boss monster, the Infinity Dragon or whatever it's called. It could do some crazy stuff. It could negate and attach a card to it. But it doesn't really have too much more than that. It's efficient, but the power level is kind of low. So it's hard to gauge how good it really is. And I think it's just simply a rogue deck. I put it ahead at maybe Earth Machines, maybe even Evil Eye. Put it right around here somewhere. Definitely a rogue deck and needs a really good pilot. Also a creative build maybe to make it more viable because it's just not viable in the current meta. You know what I mean? Like it's just not that type of deck right now. So, all right, let's bang through this. Dark Magicians, everyone's favorite. My first deck, the deck that I started playing when I first started playing Master Duel, actually was Synchrons, and I had no idea the hell I was doing with Synchrons when I first played. I got killed every time. The combos were crazy. I guess you need a big brain to play it, or you at least need to know the build well and know what the hell you're doing. And I didn't. So eventually I fell into Dark Magician and wasted all my crafting points and everything, and I was stuck with Dark Magician for a while. I started getting sick of it because the deck just isn't that good, and that's why I stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh for a while. Then I came back to it about 4 or 5 months ago. Basically, when the Ishizu cards came out, I came back and I built some new decks, and that's when Yu-Gi-Oh really opened up for me. When the new decks when I started building new decks, because I was playing Dark Magician for 2 or 3 months. That's it. I had no other deck. That could suck the life out of the game. Suck the life out of you in terms of the game. It could suck. Because you want to play something new. And so I came back. I got some gems. Obviously, gems have been more generously recently. Not too much, but on Master Duel. So I built a couple more decks, and the game has really opened up for me. And I've been having a lot of more fun and got a lot more viable decks. So I would suggest to newcomers, definitely build multiple decks if you can. Don't get stuck pigeonholed into a deck like Dark Magician. The deck is just a rogue deck. You could definitely do some things with it with bestials. You could make it a pure control deck type of thing. It is a control deck. It just doesn't have enough support as a Dark Magician engine. And if you do add these things like bestials or branded, can mix with branded pretty well, you're better off just playing branded, or you're better off just playing bestials with Dragon Link. Like, it's just a weaker version of everything else. But if you love Dark Magician, there's a lot of people who love Dark Magician out there. Shout out to my boy Loza. Loza does a lot of Dark Magician stuff out there. Check him out on YouTube. Loves Dark Magician. Always tries to figure out new ways to make it viable. But he knows the deck's kind of crap. He knows it. Everyone knows it. It's Rogue. And it's... I don't even know. Right here, I guess. Somewhere over here. It's just a rogue deck. It probably won't get you past gold, maybe into platinum. I don't think you'll get past platinum with Dark Magician unless you really dedicate yourself and make a really crazy build. You just got to work really hard if you really want this deck to be viable. So, Abyss Actors. They came out not in this last selection pack, but the selection pack before that with the bestials and stuff. I think you saw some people experimenting with it. Does some crazy, wacky stuff with pendulums and all this stuff. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get too much into it, but really it's just not a very good deck. I'm going to leave it in What Are We Doing? Because I don't think it's even viable. I've seen it once. I don't know. It just doesn't seem viable at all to me. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's rogue, but what are we doing? Don't play Abyss Actors. What the hell are we doing? Black Wings. Black Wings. Another fan favorite. DuckTales. Whoa. No, not DuckTales. But Black Wings are pretty cool. Pretty cool archetypes. See, some people like the archetypes because of the artwork. And I'm one of those people who like the artwork and stuff too. But I also want a viable deck. I look for something in between. Black Wings. Can do some crazy stuff. Going first, it could actually pull off some crazy combo type things and have all these like continuous spells in the field that allows them to continuously normal summon, and then all these big monsters come out and they could it could do some crazy stuff. I'm gonna be honest. It could just burn you to death with its extra deck monsters, or it could just overwhelm you with monsters on the field and do all this, but it's just not enough. It's easy to stop. You basically, you imperm or ash one of their cards, and then their turn could be over, which is like the definition of what happens to rogue decks. And what can I tell you? I mean, it can be good. Oh my god, my lights are flashing. This is very creepy. It can be good. I better end the stream soon because I don't know if this thing's gonna. Oh my god, there's a thunderstorm out there, boys. We're in trouble here, boys. All right, so let's start picking up the pace. Black Wings. Cool, fun deck. You want to play around with this rogue deck. It's a rogue deck for sure, and it can be fun. If you love it, maybe if you pilot it really well. Once again, it's one of those decks that can be good. You can take you places if you know how to pilot it, but you got to be real creative with it. And you really have to know what you're doing and be dedicated to it. So I would put it right here. It's definitely not weak. One of the top rogue decks, but it's still a rogue deck, right? Burn. What can I say about Burn? It's a true rogue deck that I'm going to put at the very bottom. I put Lava Golem there, even though a lot of decks use Lava Golem. I use Lava Golem in my Labyrinth deck, but Lava Golem's kind of like one of those cards that burn decks use because it burns you every standby phase for 1,000. And a burn deck is just a gimmicky deck. They're plain and simple. It's a gimmicky deck. It's a cheap deck if you want to play it and just have fun and mess around. You could even FTK or OTK with it by just burning your opponent to death. And that's basically what it does. It's a burn deck, plain and simple. But yeah, you're not going to win a lot with it. Kind of wants to go first, I feel like, every time and set up. I'm not too sure. But that's basically the gist of it. The whole strategy is to burn your opponent out. And it does work sometimes. It can take people by surprise. Let's put it that way. Not a lot of people expect it. So, Ancient Warriors. Ancient Warriors. Cool archetype. Definitely like the way the cards look. And I got beaten by this deck a lot, but I haven't seen it a lot lately, maybe because I'm in Diamond and it's just not that powerful of a deck. But it has some decent spells and traps that can help the deck out, build up their monsters, and their monsters can be hugely massive and just pummel you. It's literally like an old school beatdown deck with a little bit more support than that and a little bit more synergistic than that. But nothing more, nothing less. I don't think it's any more viable than Rogue. Although it can do damage, so I might put it right here in between Generators and Cyber Dragon. It has some power. It's not super weak. And a nice pilot could do something nice with it. To be honest with you right there. Madolche. I don't know how anyone plays this deck. It's a bunch of lollies that eat desserts. You literally got Madolche tiramisu. What are we doing here? But the deck, I'm not putting in what are we doing because it is the thing. The deck is actually pretty decent. It could do some things. It could build into a nice little board. Although I've never really seen it. I rarely play it. I rarely see it. It's viable, but I don't think it's anything more than Rogue. Once again, I don't think it has enough. I think it needs more support. The funny thing is, it's actually a good deck to counter tier limits and stuff like that because it doesn't really use the graveyard like that much, and it could do some crazy combo stuff. But I just don't think it's powerful enough. I think the power level is just not high enough. It's efficient, but I feel like it's like a much weaker version of Rika, which Rika could combo off into these amazing boards. This not so much, although combos off, but not into crazy boards. I don't think the boards are strong enough, but definitely could take a lot of people by surprise and beat people with some of the M boards and things that it could do. So I'll put it right here for now. Maybe it's ahead of some of these decks. I'll put it here, ahead of Ancient Warriors. We'll see. Code Talkers. Code Talkers are starting to get a little stronger, as you'll see later on. I think in the next format, you're going to start seeing some more Code Talker cards come out, and you'll see it becoming more viable of a strategy. The problem is the Cyber strategy right now, the Cyber's cards. Maybe Code Talker is the best option right now because Math Mech just gets killed by so many decks right now, and it's just like in a terrible place, Math Mech. But which we'll get into Math Mech next. But I think down the line this will be a better deck. As of right now, just Rogue. Because what does it do? It links off into a bunch of link monsters, linking. It could do some massive damage going second. Sometimes it could build a nice little board of link monsters that could, basically knock you out. But it also could be easily stopped and, it all falls apart. And then basically all it does is it goes into Access Code Talker, uses Update Jammer to blast you for 4,300 attack twice and win the game. That's what it's trying to do, but it doesn't work too often. So it's Rogue. Where in Rogue? I don't know. I'll put it right here. It's not that powerful. I'll be honest with you. Blue Eyes, what are we doing? I'm not even putting it in Rogue. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of Blue Eyes fans out there. There's a lot of people. I even put Dark Magician in Rogue. Dark Magician at least has other options, other viable options that it could do. Um, it has other things you could put in engines. Like you could put also a lot of different floodgates in the Dark Magician deck. There's a lot you could do with it right now. And Bestials can be played in Dark Magician. But Blue Eyes has nothing going for it. The only thing is the Bestials are dragons, and that's a dragon, but it's the worst possible deck you could put Bestials in, I think. I think you're better off putting Bestials in any other deck. The deck is just hasn't had good support in a long time. All it's got is Jet Dragon and nothing else. It's just, yeah, it's a beat down deck. It could beat you down, but it's 1 in 10 shot that it's actually going to get that far. It's just, what are we doing? If you love the deck and you want to play for fun in silver and bronze, sure, play Blue Eyes, but it's not a competitively viable deck. I think it's in what are we doing? I know. I'm sorry, guys. I hate to break it to y'all. Stun. Hate stun. Shit deck. I mean, people were using it before Labyrinth and Trap Tricks got all this support because it was like the only viable control deck that could really hurt the elements because it doesn't use the graveyard and could use all these, tech cards like Dimensional Fissure, Dimension Shifter, blah, blah, blah. I got the Fossil Dino on there, which basically says you cannot special summon monsters. So it just tries to stun you, lock you into not doing anything. And it's only viable going first, really. Going second, it'll get fucking destroyed. Sorry for the cursing, but that's the truth. But it's rogue because it does take people by surprise and work sometimes. I'd even put it ahead of most of these other decks. Put it right here, right around the Cyber Dragon area. Because, listen, stun works right now with the meta. It's the format. But it's always going to be rogue. It'll never not be rogue, and it'll never be anything more than rogue. Just the way it is. Mutant, I don't even know about Mutant, dude. I feel like it's just another engine. It's an archetypal engine. It's not really like a deck you'll see on its own. You'll see certain other decks use it as an engine to help bolster their engine and make it more efficient. But it's nothing more than rogue. I'm going to put it at the back tier of rogue. Like, I haven't even really been seeing it at all. So maybe it'll come back into relevance, but it has a nice little loop of efficiency, but I don't know what deck is really using it right now. Maybe, I think Punks can use it a little bit. Sprites can use it a little bit. There are certain decks that could use it, but I haven't seen it at all, to be honest with you. Marincess. Interesting deck. The first water deck that we've seen, by the way. Remember this. Keep this in mind. That all these decks are like light, dark, earth. Basically, that's it. Maybe some fire and some wind here and there, but scattered. But first water deck. So keep that in mind. So this is a water deck, and because of Zealantis, which was a new card that came out in the pack with the Goaties, which was 2 packs ago, the deck has become a little bit more viable. Problem with the deck is it's extremely predictable. You know exactly what it's going to do if you've been playing the game and you know the meta, you know the decks, you know what it's going to do. What's it going to do? It's going to fucking try to build up using link monsters. It keeps linking off with Anima and all these other cards, Crystal Heart, etc., etc. It uses Battle Ocean, which is its field spell, and then it equips it 3 link monsters to its biggest monster, which I forget the name of right now. Argonaut, I believe it is. That's Argonaut right there, I believe. And then it's just a big, tall tower that's sometimes, depending on what link monsters you use, unaffected by card effects and stuff like that. So you just got to out it. Once you out it, it's pretty much game over for them. Or you got to stop them from getting to it, which you're going to, like, if you play Marincess enough, you know their line of play. They're just super predictable. But still a viable strategy. But I just still don't think they're viable enough. I think they're rogue, but they're high rogue. I would put them right here, maybe in this generator, Blackwing, Goatee area. I mean, they could be even higher than that, Marincess, to be honest with you. But I don't think they are. That's my personal opinion. I think people would put them higher than I put them. But that's fine. Dinomorphia. There's Rexterm. Rexterm, the floodgate of the Dinomorphia deck. Pretty interesting deck, but it relies solely on doing this one big play with all its trap cards, and then it gets Rexterm out there, and then if all that gets outed, it gets screwed. It also bricks a lot. Once again, Rogue. It's the Dino version of a control trap deck. Uses all these trap decks. It tries to knock all its health points down to nothing, because what that does is when Rexterm's on the field, that means you can't use monster effects if the monster has more attack points than the person who's playing Dinomorphia's life points. And usually they can get their life points down below 2,000 pretty quickly and easily on the opponent's turn, especially when they're going first. The problem with the deck is going second, because it needs to set up this board, and I just don't think it's good enough. So I think I would put it right around here with Stun and Cyber Dragon. It's not bad. It might need some more support. It needs like a new card. You know what I mean? Like something new. Branded Despia. Let's get into the good decks here. This is a good deck, boys. Even though I hate it. Brain Dead Despia. They're brain dead. No, I'm kidding. Don't worry about it. Branded Despia, Brain Dead Despia. Yeah, we know what they do. Mirror Jade, Albion, Lubellion, blah, blah. And now they got their Bestials. Cool. Gimmick Puppet. Not cool. But guess what? Good deck. Solid deck. The problem is you hit him with Ash one time on Fusion, on, what'd you call it? How could I forget? Branded Fusion. You hit them with Branded Fusion on with the Ash, they're done. That's it. Alibur, normal summon Alibur, pass turn. Oh my god, my light's going out again. We gotta hurry up and do this. Yeah, it's just, that's the problem with the deck. It's you can easily stop them going into the plays they want to go to. It's definitely a strong deck if they're able to do the things they want to do. Problem is, you can easily stop them, and they don't really have a lot of negates, by the way. So I don't think they'll ever be a tier 1 deck, in my opinion. I think they're always going to be tier 2, but they are at the top of tier 2 for me, because they are extremely powerful still. They're just not a meta-defining deck. I think they're always one of those decks that people love to play. It's a great deck to play. It's a simple deck to play. It's brain dead. Maybe good for newcomers, but it's also very expensive. And with the Bestials, they definitely became a lot stronger, but still in this place where it's like, they're not tier 1. Not for me, at least. Pendulum Magicians. Good deck. Solid deck. Probably the best Pendulum type deck out there, but that's not saying much because Pendulum decks aren't great. But it can work, and it's a good strategy. It should be good versus Telements because it doesn't really use the graveyard at all. It's all Pendulum stuff. And you would think that would make them much stronger, but even with that, they're still not strong enough. So that makes me think that the deck is good, but just not great. I'd put them at the top of Rogue, though. They definitely can do damage, and you definitely will see them on your ladder climb. They start disappearing around High Diamond, but you'll see them. You'll still see them once in a while. Dragon Link. Ooh, Dragon Link, baby. This is a powerful deck now. It was in Rogue. It was non-existent before the Bestials came out. Now that the Bestials came out, this made the whole deck. It like fits into the deck perfectly. If there's one deck that the Bestials fit into perfectly, besides Branded, is Dragon Link. And Dragon Link is super powerful because of it. And it can build some crazy boards, and it can end on some crazy boards. I just don't think it's crazy enough. And I also feel like for all the thinking you got to do, you need to be a real pilot to pilot this thing. You need to be a real brainiac to get through these lines of play and get to where you want to get to. And all it ends up on is a Borrelord Savage Dragon and a Borrelin Dragon, which is good, but it's not great. Yeah, it might end up with a Baron de Floor 2, possibly, if you let them completely cook and just like get to their full max potential. But I really don't think the board is as strong as a lot of other boards, like Sprite, Telements, and sometimes even Branded can end up on stronger boards. But I don't know. It depends. It really depends on the pilot. It's still a top deck. I would put it right behind Branded as a tier 2 top contender because it is super strong right now. With the Bestial meta and everything. But we'll see what happens after Kashtira comes out. Kashtira coming out in next pack. You heard it here first. Kashtira will be coming out next pack. It's been what, 9, 10 months since Kashtira came out for TCG. There's no way it doesn't come out soon. So save up your gems if you want Kashtira and you want a tier 0 deck that's actually cool, not like Telements or Sprite. Just kidding. Don't be mad at me if you're a Sprite or a Telements fan. You know, do what have you. Do what have you. I think Kashtira is going to be fun. But if you want to save for that, I'm finally going to be a meta sheep. I never do that. But I'm turning into a meta sheep because I just like the way Kashtira looks. I like the way the cards look. I think it's really cool. I also think it's really cool that all you need is this one card, a Rise Heart, and pass. And you can win the game with that. I find that to be really funny and interesting. But we'll get into Kashtira when it comes out. I don't want to go too crazy here. Exodia, what are we doing? What are we doing? It goes right into what are we doing because Exodia does not win. It wins probably 1 out of every 20 matches because it never wins going second, and going first it needs to hit all its cards perfectly without getting stopped by hand traps. Don't play it unless you want to just meme and play Exodia because you're an anime fan and you're a boomer and you blah 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 blah. Fine, but what are we doing? What are we doing, guys? Crystal Beast, one of my favorites. My favorite anime deck. And when I said that Heroes or this other deck are the 2 top anime decks, I think Crystal Beast is that other one. I honestly think Crystal Beast is bottom tier 3 competitive. I know. People might think I'm crazy. I think it's very competitive sleeper. Bottom, though, because the deck itself isn't like this super strong deck, but it has all these different options. It's actually pretty efficient for like if you play the control deck style is what I'm saying, not the other one where you're trying to bring out these huge big rainbow dragon monsters from the extra deck. The control deck style can be really good. The problem is there's not enough monsters in this deck that are good. They're all kind of weak except for what you see here, which is the Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon. But there's a lot of different things you could do. You could it bounces cards on the field. It doesn't use the graveyard. When their cards get popped, it goes into the spell and trap zone, which is to your advantage because then you can use that later to OTK your opponent, Ruby Carbuncle. I play this deck a lot. It's really fun. You can run Dimension Shifter. You can run so many things. Dimension Shifter. You could run Dimensional Fissure. You could run Macrocosms. You could run There Can Be Only One. You can run all the things that crush the meta. In my personal deck, I run 2 D shifters. I run 3 evenly matched, 3 max C. I also run a 2 There Can Be Only One, and I run and just the deck, the stuff within the deck are great too. Like Crystal Conclave bounces one of your own cards and bounces one of their cards back to the hand. Any of their cards. Rainbow Bridge of the Heart is like the heart and soul of the deck. That thing, if a monster, Crystal Beast monster goes into the spell and trap zone, which they will when they get destroyed, which you can destroy with Crystal Miracle. Crystal Miracle is one of your trap cards that are great, that literally negates anything. It's a complete omni negate as a trap, so they don't see it coming at all. You flip it, boom, you negate and destroy, but you also have to destroy one of your own Crystal Beast monsters, but that's a good thing, because what ends up happening is you destroy one of your own Crystal Beast monsters, they go into the spell and trap zone, that triggers Rainbow Bridge of the Heart, and then you could bounce a card on the field. So you can literally negate any play that they do, and then bounce whatever card they have on the field. Really good interruptions, really good deck. You just got to kind of learn how to pilot it a little bit, and the build has to be very, very right. But I think it's very competitive with the right pilot. Aghnisters. We know what Aghnisters do. It's a decent deck. I think it's been more of hybrid with like Scareclaws and stuff like that recently. And it can be powerful because it has the Arrival boss monster. It's just very difficult to get to. So to me, it's always going to be sort of this rogue type of deck. And I don't know if it'll ever be more than that. Yeah. I do not know. I want to put Evil Eye higher. Yeah, it's all about Arrival. So mixing it with like something like Scareclaw, which speaking of Scareclaw, here's Scareclaw. Scareclaw is a real cool deck. When Vanadium comes out later, they use Scareclaw cards like this, like Rykart. That's Rykart right there. Scareclaw could be real cool because they have that Tri-Heart. Sorry for my stuttering here. They have Tri-Heart, which is their boss monster. It's a Link 3 or something like that, and it's definitely a Link monster, and it's kind of like this floodgate that stops all the effects of monsters. It's just not that powerful, and that might be the problem with that. Kind of needs a little bit more power on that end in terms of what it ends up with. So it's still going to be in the rogue category, but it's definitely got, it gets a little bit more support. This thing could be a tier 3, tier 2 deck. It's got some serious potential. I'll put it right here for now, ahead of Ancient Warriors, because it definitely has super potential. Dark World. This is one of the new archetypes that just came out. I should have mentioned that. I apologize, but Dark World was one of the new, not one of the new archetypes, but one of the new support archetypes. It got Grapha, but actually Grapha, the fusion monster, actually helped Telements more than anything else. Of course, Telements always gets helped out by random crap. It's unbelievable. Like, I just don't understand. Like, burn Telements to the ground. No, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with Telements because they're just not that powerful anymore. I love playing Telements because every time I play them and beat them with like Labyrinth, they're like scrambling to do something. Oh, Spread Elf. Oh, let me throw Maxia from the grave so I have a rank 2 on the field. They're just scrambling as much as they can to win because they're not used to losing. And it's just hysterical to see. So they're just not that powerful anymore. So I don't care about Telements. But Dark World is crazy. I actually got completely milled burned in turn 0 against them because I maxied them. They did all their plays because all they could do is just keep hand looping, summoning, looping, summoning, special summoning, bringing back monsters, discarding, doing all this crazy shit. And they work well with the danger monsters, which I don't have on this list, by the way. But let's include them as part of this package. Danger monsters, by the way. And then they hit Card of Destruction, and that literally milled me out completely. So they can do things like that. The problem is it's too few and far between. Max C could kill them, and also Stroll and Lockbird completely kills them. That's going to be a very viable hand trap in the future, I think. And it's just, I don't know if the end board is really good enough, even though they're doing all this special summoning and stuff like that, and they could put out a bunch of big, strong monsters to wipe you out. I don't think they have enough, like, hold the line. Like, I don't think they have enough defense to stop everything. So it's not really this like super viable deck. I would put it right here. Mid rogue. It's just really not, I don't know. Maybe a crazy pilot with a creative deck can do something with it, but beyond that, I don't know. DDDs, the most difficult deck to pilot. You got to be like a genius to pilot this deck. You might, if you're playing the monster type event, by the way, you might be seeing some DDs. Not full DDDs. It is kind of DD. There's some DDDs in there, but DDs are in there too. And you could tell that they use these pendulum monsters and they bounce cards back, destroy their own monsters. They use like every type of mechanic in the game. It's crazy, which is really cool, I think. It's a really cool deck. And a really good pilot could probably do some massive damage with this deck. The problem is it's not the right format. It's all these dark monsters and fiend monsters that kind of get crushed by Telements and Bestials and the like, and it just sucks to be them right now. Maybe in some other format, they could be a lot better, but as of right now, I don't think they have what it takes. Shizu Chaos, this is sort of like a dead deck. It's kind of like Grass Piles, but the Grass Piles are better. If you do like an Ashizu Telements with branded type thing, it could be good, but this is really just like an engine, and it's a dying engine, so I'm just going to throw it somewhere in Rogue. It isn't. They are important cards, and people keep using them, so I think as an engine, as small as it is, still very, very useful. So we're going to put it right there in front of Madolche. What do we got here? Runic. So it's just Runic, but when I talk, like I said before, when I talk about Runic, I'm talking about the best possible variants. And I guess you got Runic for hire, you got Runic Sprite, you got Runic Stun, you got all these types of Runic decks. But let's be honest, the best type of Runic deck, which I think is going to be Runic for hire moving forward. I don't really know. I could be wrong. But to me, it's a tier 3 deck still, because it could still really take a lot of people by surprise. It has really good cards. It's a really toxic engine that could do a lot of things that's so different from other decks. And it can be a killer. It can be really annoying to deal with. I'm actually going to put it really high here. I actually think it's better than Trap Tricks. And it's obviously better than the engine that it uses for hire. So, I'm going to put in tier 3 right behind Grass, Heroes, Flanderies, Runic right there, then Trap Tricks. I think it's still viable. I hate to say it, it's still viable. Even though Telements kills it, but guess what? Runic disappeared when Telements was tier 0. Now Telements is tier 1, and it's been slowly getting worse. Runic has slowly been getting better. That's the way the scale of the pendulum works. Notice what I did there? Dragon Maid, sort of a deck. Can use the Bestials a little bit. It ends on the Shao, the Dragon Maid Shao card, which is like this Omni Negate type thing, but that's about all it's got. Kind of needs to be mixed with other engines. Rogue, it's a rogue deck. It's whatever, right? It's an engine. It could be a full deck. If you like it, have fun with it. I don't think it's going very far for you, though. You really need to be creative. Once again, Virtual World, you can mix this with Punk. You can mix this with a lot of other things. I actually play Shen Shen in my Punk deck. I like Shen Shen a lot, but it hasn't really been a viable deck for a while. It might come back at some point in the next format, but as of right now, it's bottom of Rogue. It might not even be as viable as Burn, but I'll put it ahead of Burn for now. It's really nothing. Same thing with Drytron here. Drytron, you don't really see it. Like Virtual World, very similar. Both really good engines and archetypes that at the beginning of Master Duel worked really well. Now they kind of disappeared. They just got power crept or whatever. But I could see these coming back. Drytron could come back because you got the Heralds coming back at more than one. Maybe there'll be 2 of them, and in the TCG there is. So we might see them come back. I'll put them right here. Maybe even ahead of Dark Magician and Code Talker. All right. Shadal, another one. More of an engine now, used more than anything. Bottom of Rogue type thing. It's just, there's not a lot going for it right now. It got power crept. It's another deck that was very good at the beginning of Master Duel, and now just it's not the same deck as it used to be. Magical Musketeers. I know we're getting into all these crazy decks now. I want to get this over with, to be honest with you, but I want to see some more. I'm going to be real quick with it. Magic Musketeers, I've been seeing a lot in actually the monster type event, and it actually works pretty interestingly with Runic, but you don't see it in the ladder. So, okay. Once again, rogue type of deck here. More of an engine, once again. Something you hybrid with other things. I'll put it maybe right here because it does have a little bit of power. Couldn't do a couple of things, but kind of really weak in the end of it all. Like it ends up with a board that's like pretty easy to out. The rogue tier, just take with a grain of salt. I'm gonna throw things in places I don't want to really have to think about where I gotta put them. But just remember, there's higher end of the rogue, there's lower end of the rogue, and that could easily change. They're just rogue decks. They're decks that can take people by surprise and be really good. Labyrinth, what I've been rocking lately. I'm learning the deck. When I first started, I was getting crushed. It's a very technical deck. People think it might be an easy deck. It is not an easy deck to pilot. I'm learning more and more, and I've been really crushing it lately. Now I'm in Diamond 2 with it. This is a Tier 2 top contender. I might even put it at the top of Tier 2. I think it's top Tier 2. I think it's that good. I think it can be that good with the right pilot. And it just counters a lot of things. Counters a lot of decks like Branded and all these other decks. It counters them extremely well. It's the best control deck in the game. So because of that, it can beat Dragon Link and Branded Despia extremely easily. So, and Dragon Link and Despia are very similar. They're combo-esque mid-range decks. This is definitely a much more, and toxic. It's very toxic. You just eradicate an epidemic virus. You or Dimensional Barrier, Branded Fusion, and then they're done. There's a lot it could do, and it's super powerful. I'm just learning it, but definitely can easily get to Master 1 with this deck. So powerful, Labyrinth. If you want to play a control deck that has a bunch of traps, you can play the furniture version. I play the heavy trap version. It's been working really well for me because you don't have to worry about the graveyard so much with the bestials. And you just set traps and you bring out these big boss monsters like Lovely and Lady, the boss biatches. I'm sorry for saying that. And the boss ladies. They come out and they wreck you. And I add Lord of the Heavenly Prison in there, another 3K body. Math Mech. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Math Mech. Not the same deck as it used to be. This used to be a tier 1 deck in the meta before Tearlaments. Now, it's barely a rogue deck. I mean, it's still a good deck. It's still an efficient deck, right? It's just, I'll put it at the top of rogue because it's definitely better than all these rogue decks, probably. It's just the wrong meta for it, man. Maybe Pendulums are better, and maybe Goatee's a little... I can't even say Goatee's better. I don't know. I'm going to put it at the top of rogue because it really is a good deck. It's just not the right meta for it. Just the wrong meta for it because it can be extremely efficient and powerful. Similar to Sword Soul, where it's like you know what you're getting into, and you know that it's extremely powerful. It can take out a lot of decks, right? Synchrons. There's Junk Speeder. That's what they rely on. Synchrons rely on their Junk Speeder. If they don't hit their Junk Speeder, boom, they lose. If they hit their Junk Speeder, boom, they win. It's an all or nothing on the Junk Speeder. That's why it's a rogue deck. But it is a high rogue deck because it can be extremely powerful, and it's getting a lot more support. So I think it can be something that's a lot more viable than what we used to have. I might even put it ahead. I'll put it right here. In between Marincess and the Ishizu, the archetype. It's creeping up, the rogue tier for me. Mayakashi / zombies. Not really anything. It's just, you would think it'd be good in a graveyard meta. It's just not really. It kind of gets hurt by a lot of things. Yes, it could turn everything into zombies with the zombie world card, but I don't know. It just doesn't do enough. It's just power crept, Numeron. High-end rogue. Could still do damage. I'll put it here. And take you by surprise. Definitely a deck that can take you by surprise, and it wants to go second. That's one of the biggest advantages of the deck. That's why I'll say it's high-end rogue. Wants to go second, build that board, have that Numeron network, set up the 4 stupid wall things, and attack you till it OTKs you, and that's it. But also, you out that Numeron network, the game's over. So it's all or nothing type gimmick, and it does work though. It's very surprising. I just don't see it anymore because I don't think it's that powerful. Naturia. So the best version of Naturia is Naturia Runic. And I think it's actually a really good deck. I'm actually going to put it in Tier 3 competitive at the bottom. Because like I said, Runic is really good. But the best variant, I don't know what it is. But maybe it's for higher. Maybe it's the stun. I don't know. But Naturia Runic is also very good. I wouldn't call it rogue. I actually think it's actually a really good deck. Bottom of Tier 3 because definitely beatable, and I've definitely been seeing a lot less of it lately as the meta has changed and formed around new stuff. And now that we got Labyrinth and all this other stuff, certain things have fallen out of favor, right? Orcust, Mech Knights, Rogue. I don't know where you want to put in Rogue right here. No, drop it a little lower. Maybe near the Scareclaw area. Maybe below Scareclaw. It could be a good deck. The right pilot could really do a lot of damage with it. It has some really good extra deck monsters like Dingirasu, and it uses columns as like a thing to help it, sort of mess with the opponent. It's like a weird strategy. But I think it needs like a really good pilot. I wouldn't recommend it to newcomers either. So Dinos, really fun deck. People love this deck. Expensive deck. I would probably recommend it to newcomers, maybe. I don't know if you got the money for it. Maybe go for it. But I don't know. I mean, learn the game first. Maybe you need another deck. Sword Soul would be a better one. Let me get to Sword Soul after this. But Dinos is definitely a strategy that I feel bad for because it's got really good cards like uh, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, which can flip all your monsters face down. It's got Miscellaneousaurus and Oviraptor or whatever it's called. Aviraptor? I forget what the name of it is. But it has these really good cards. Problem is, it's just the wrong meta for it. I don't know. Maybe it's the meta or the format. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just power crept. Or maybe we just need a new format and then it'll become live again. Or maybe it just needs some new support, like one new support card. The deck can be really powerful, though. And that's why I'm actually going to put it probably right around here. I think it can be really good with the right pilot, for sure. Dogmatica, again, rogue deck. Middle of rogue somewhere, maybe ahead of DDDs. Mech Knights, I'll put it right here. Dogmatica, it got some new support, yes, but the whole problem with Dogmatica is its whole strategy is to basically take away all your extra deck monsters. So, if you're playing a deck that doesn't use the extra deck, you're losing. If you're playing Dogmatica, you're losing. Because if the opponent doesn't play the extra deck, what are you going to do? And if you're playing a deck that even uses the extra deck, yeah, you could take some extra deck monsters away, and you got to get that going first. You got to get the Albaloa monster out there, and you got to get these certain monsters out there before you could even start really ripping from the extra deck. So you kind of got to go first, and going second really not as powerful. And that's really its only strategy, is that it takes away from your extra deck. So how powerful can that be? At times it could be powerful, but it's just too rogue and too niche at the moment. Even with the support, just not good enough. I'm not seeing it anywhere either. Kaijus. Kaijus are really interesting because they could be really good at times and they could really take you by surprise. But once again, they're rogue because they're a gimmicky deck. You're just kaijuing, you're taking away things. You're probably using a lot of hand traps and shit like that to basically wind down your opponent's resources till they got nothing. And then, you kind of hit them hard with your own kaijus. But it's not that bad. I actually think it's better than stun, or could be better than stun. So I'll put it right here ahead of stun. I don't know. I might put Dynamorphia up more too. Something like that. Right? I don't know. Rogue is a weird spot. Raid Raptors, it has that big one ultimate Falcon boss monster, which could really be a hard out. It's unaffected by everything. The problem getting there, it takes a lot of comboing, and it wants to go first. Going second, it could get crushed. Once again, like a lot of other rogue decks, it just doesn't have enough besides that one ultimate monster. A lot of these decks just have this one boss monster, or they might have multiples, but they have to go through lines of combo, and if you hit them at their choke point, they're done, and they pass turn with nothing. So that's basically the gist of all these rogue decks. But Raid Raptors, somewhere around here, I guess. I don't know if it's better than Evil Eye or not. I don't really know. It just got that one boss. That's the Falcon right there. I mean, what else has it got? Plunder Patrol. Really love this deck. Not so much a deck, more so a archetype that kind of hybrids well with like Runic. It's a control style of play, and it actually has some really interesting things, and a really good pilot can do some really nasty stuff with it. I actually think it's high rogue. Actually going to put it at the top of rogue. It's borderline tier 3 to me. With Runic and with like the certain right strategy, hybrid strategy, Plunder can be really powerful and really stop your opponents control-wise. So keep that in mind. And even though the selection pack just recently got off the market, might be something we want to look into. I don't know how expensive it is, but if it's not too expensive, if you're looking for a control deck that's pretty cool, pretty fun to play, and that can mix with other decks, that might be the deck for you. Sprite. Sprite is just really good, man. Really annoying, but really good. This is your first tier 1 deck. I've been going through all this whole list. It's the first tier 1 deck, I guess. I mean, really, I could probably put Labyrinth in tier 1 too. But let's do this for now. So Sprite could play with anything. Sprite for hire, Sprite Melfi, Sprite Pure, Sprite Runic. I mean, the deck is crazy. The efficiency of it's insane. The boards that it builds are insane. It can negate. Its only one little flaw is that it doesn't really have big monsters, but then it just like gamma bursts. So it has all these spells that boost up their monsters and just they could OTK easily, or it has all these spells that could stop you from doing things. They don't even need outside archetype cards because their whole in archetype is amazing. They have negates, they have things that banish, things that destroy, they have everything they need within their archetype, yet they still have room to play non-archetype cards. The deck is just really, really strong. Haven't seen a lot of it lately since Labyrinth came out, and I don't know why that is. I don't know, people are probably playing Telements with the new Grapha, or they're playing Labyrinth or whatever, but Sprite is still one of the most powerful decks, there's no question about it. Salads. What are we doing? What are we doing if we're playing Salads? I'm sorry, I can't even put it in Rogue. I just can't. It's just not good. It's just not viable. It just got completely power crept. It's gone. Endymion. I'm sorry, Salad fans, but it's just, have you seen it? Does it do anything? No, it's gone. It's been power crept. It's just gone. I might even put like my mutant in here, but it's a strat. It's different because this is an actual deck. This is just a engine archetype type thing. So, you know, is what it is. Endymion, better than a lot of these other bottom rogue decks, I'd say, but not by too much. Put them maybe right here. Yeah, like right here. Oops, don't know where they went. Oh. Yeah, like right here or something. It could be good. It's the second best pendulum strategy, I think. It's got some negates and stuff like that, but it's really not that powerful. Doesn't end on a crazy powerful board. Phantasm Spiral. This was doing really well during Tier 0 because every other deck got crushed by Tier 0. Only the decks that could literally do not use the graveyard at all and that can survive by just using like certain monsters on their field and that's it. Like simple strategies, and Phantasm Spiral just all it needs is this field spell, and it just makes a 2800 body, which is the Phantasm Spiral Dragon, and it summons vanilla monsters, and then it has like a bunch of traps that it can play right from its hand because of what's it called? The field spell that they use, it's Pacifist, the Pacifist field spell. So the whole thing about it is if you can get rid of that field spell and for good, then they're beat. But the thing is, it's pretty easy for them to get to that field spell. So the deck is actually pretty viable. The problem is you haven't seen it a lot lately because ever since Teelement's power has dropped, the deck becomes less viable. It's not good against other decks that don't, rely heavily on the graveyard. So this was like specifically for Teelements. Still pretty good. I feel like it's such a simple strategy that could do a lot of good things, but I just don't know anymore if it's that good. Punk, I love Punk. Punk is more of an engine. I hate to say it. You could play pure Punk, but it's not like a small engine, even though it is kind of small. You can make it a hybrid engine. Like I play Punk Bestials and it works really well. And the extra deck monsters you could get into are kind of crazy. You can make some crazy boards with this deck. I honestly think it's Tier 3. And I think it's even more viable than people think with the Bestials now. I would put it right here. Even ahead of Trap Tricks. I think it's like Punk is just such a good, efficient engine that works so well. All you need is like one or two Punk cards in your hand, and you could do so much. And you could play so many hand traps, so many tech cards with it, including all the Bestials at full capacity. And that's how I play it. And then you got this whole slew of extra deck monsters that you go into. Depending on the situation, you could go into different ones. You kind of need to really know the deck well and be pretty smart to pilot it the right way. But really good deck. Can be really good. I'm talking about the Punk Bestials version. The pure Punk version could use some work. But when Gold Pride comes out, remember that name, Gold Pride and TCG, when that comes out later on in the future, look out because it's going to be definitely a viable, powerful engine. Tunes, what are we doing? just not viable anymore. This was a really good deck when Master Duel first came out. No longer the case. It just has this really weird strategy. It relies heavily on its field spell, but it's just been power crept by everybody else's field spells and everybody else's monsters and everybody else's thing. Like it's just been completely power crept. Telements is still tier 1. Yep, and still the number 1 deck. I wanted to put Sprite at number 1 for a while there, but ever since this Grapha came out, it made them even more powerful. Like Telements just doesn't want to go away. The strategy is just such a good toxic strategy that it's always going to be a tier 1 deck, but it's still tier 1, rank 1. That's just the way it is. And it's been like that for months now, but it is getting weaker. Sprite, Labyrinth has inched closer. Now the Labyrinth's here. Sprite, Branded, Dragon Link, and these cards, Exorcister, Emancipator, Grass Piles, whatever, what have you. These decks are closer now. It's not as distant as it was before. Okay. Sword Soul. Perfect deck for newcomers. This is the deck I recommend to all newcomers to the game, all new players. Simple deck, simple lines of play. Very strong, very efficient, and pretty simple to learn. It's not like you need a big brain to figure it out. Uses powerful synchro monsters. It doesn't end on anything too crazy. It's very balanced, and it's always viable. It's always competitive. It's definitely a tier 3 deck, and I'd even put it at the top of tier 3. Really good deck. Actually, I'm going to put it at the bottom of tier 2. Yeah. Maybe even ahead of Emancipators. It's just such a good, solid deck, dude. And I know it could get hurt a little bit by the Bistils and stuff like that, but as Telements is getting worse, these other decks are getting worse. Souls is just going to stay as that tier 2 top contender, good deck that it always is. That's why it's great for new players coming into the game, because it's always going to be this solid deck. It's going to linger between tier 2 and tier 3. It's never really going to be tier 1 unless the meta is perfect for them. But let's put them at the bottom of tier 2. Because Emancipator is just perfect for the meta right now. Sword Soul is more of just a really good deck. The meta is not great for it, but it's not bad for it. It's just a tier 2 solid deck, plain and simple. I'm using it synchro plays. True Draco, Rogue. I haven't seen it in a while. I think it might come back. It might get some support, but nothing much there. Thunder Dragons is part of that pile. The Grass Pile decks, it could be really good. You could even do a Punk OTK Thunder Dragon type deck. So we'll put it in the middle of Rogue somewhere because it does have some sort of potential, but it's not anything crazy or special. Same with Therion, another one that could float well with Punk. Both these strategies. Therion can be even better, actually, so I'm going to put it up a little higher. Therion, but it's an engine. It's an archetype engine thing. It's not really a deck on its own. Umi Control, one of my favorite decks, could actually kill this meta right now. Problem with Umi Control is all the hits that Telements got with like Foolish Burial Goods and Terraforming really hurt this deck, and Crystal Beast and decks like it. So you can't be as efficient with the deck. But going first, this deck could be absolutely, you completely stun your opponent from doing anything. I actually think this is a high-end rogue deck. High-end rogue deck. We'll put it right here. I think it's really good. You can really surprise opponent. People don't know what Umi Control do. They don't know how it operates. I've beaten Telements, Branded, all these decks with Umi Control easily. The only issue with it is going second. You don't play too many going second cards. Hopefully you hit a maxi or an evenly match. If you don't, you got to hope you could just get your Kairoshin on the board with Umi and then hopefully break their board. But also, you kind of have to hit your cards. So you got to play a lot of pots, and you're not really comboing. So you kind of need a lot of pieces to fall into place. So you can brick at times, and you could also just get overpowered by much more stronger combo decks. So, high rogue for me. Tri Brigade with Sprite has become something. something pretty powerful. It's been a lot better, I think. So I'm going to put it up there in the rogue tier. The weather, bottom rogue, somewhere here. I think it's better than a lot of these other decks because it's kind of like a pretty decent control deck. I think right here is a good spot. Behind Evil Eye, behind Demion. I'll put it right there. The weather is, the weather. It's basically, it could be good in this meta because it doesn't really use the graveyard, and it's a very interesting control deck. I just think it needs more support, and it needs a little bit more power moving forward. Gunkin Suship. The Suships. Rogue. Just Rogue. I don't know where in Rogue. It's the Suships. You know what I mean? Like, pretty bad Rogue, probably. Yeah, I'll put it right there. It's just not a viable deck at the moment. I don't think you can do much with it. You could have fun with it. That's about it. Subterror is another control deck. Unfortunately, not the right meta for it. It needs a lot of help. Labyrinth kind of kills it. I'm not going to put it in What Are We Doing, but it's not very viable at the moment. It's a flip summon deck. It has Guru. It could play a lot, certain floodgates and stuff like that, but it's just not that great. You know what I mean? I'll put it over here. It's not that great at the moment. Spiral, it could get better if they get support. Spiral's really good. Spiral, very good. I would put it in Rogue, high Rogue somewhere. Probably ahead of Goaty and Dinos. I'll put it right behind Umi Control because I think Umi Control is better in my opinion, just because of the meta. Spiral is just like a weaker combo deck than all the top combo decks. It could build a nice board, and that's about it. Sky Striker. People love Sky Striker, but is Sky Striker good? The answer to the question is it's decent. It's not great. You stop their main gimmick of using spells and bringing monsters, keep going into their links and, Kagari or whatever. Like, you can stop it. It's really not that powerful. It's never going to OTK you or anything like that. But it's still a high-end rogue deck. It's still got power to it. So I'll put it right behind Dinos for now. Rika. Ooh, Rika equals power. I'm putting it in tier 2. Watch your mouth. Don't say one word about it. I'm actually putting it in tier 2, right behind Dragon Link, ahead of Exorcister, ahead of Emancipator, ahead of Sword Soul. Rika is extremely powerful, even though no one plays it. I don't understand why. I'm going to start playing it. By the way, the third full water deck we've out of all these 75 archetypes, there's been 3 pure water decks. Rika, which is the best one, Umi Control, and Marincess. And all 3 are pretty viable, but Rika is super powerful. Should be tier 2 in my opinion. Many people might not think so because they don't see it, but this deck going first can build an insane board, and if it does be able to build that board, you pretty much lose. Going second, it has its troubles. It also has troubles outing back row sometimes, but it has super versatility, and it could go into so many things. Rika Sun Avalon, very powerful deck. Don't recommend it to newcomers, though, because heavy combos, crazy lines of play. Could be interesting. What is this? Prank Kids, what are we doing? Prank Kids, what are we doing with Prank Kids? Don't play Prank Kids unless you really like Prank Kids. You get the butcher out there, and that's your own personal Raigeki, and that's all you got. That's all you got. It's over. Prank Kids, it's over for Prank Kids, my guy. Maybe one day when it comes back, I'll put it back in Rogue. I just want to throw some more things into What Are We Doing, because the What Are We Doing category is very, very light. The Rogue category is super heavy. We expected that, though. And what is this last deck that I have no idea what it is? Hold on one second. Is that Kurikara? I believe this is Kurikara. Kurikara could be really interesting. I think it's high Rogue, potentially. I'm going to put it behind Tri Brigade and behind Synchrons. Yeah. It could do damage, Kurikara. It could, it has plays. It wants to go second. It wants to basically out your board and out all your big monsters and just leave you with nothing except what it wants to leave you with. And so it has that potential, kind of like Kaiju's. But there you go. There you have it. This was a long one. Sorry about the time. I wanted to really, go into basically all the possible decks. I'm sure there's some decks I missed out there, like Lunalight and I don't know, certain other roguish decks or what are we doing type decks out there that I haven't touched on. But this is pretty much the gist of it. A lot of, and look, and as you can see, there's just not a lot of great decks out there. There's a decent amount. Look what we have here. We have 3 in tier 1. We have Tearlament, Sprite, and Labyrinth. You got your big control deck and your 2 big combo decks at the top. And that's including other variants of it. So you can play different variants of that. You don't have to just play the one type, right? So that's 3. You got Branded Despius 4, Dragon Link 5, Rika 6, Exorcister 7, Adamancipator 8, Sword Soul 9. So you got a nice top 9 right there. That's plenty of decks right off the bat. And one of them is very beginner friendly in Sword Soul. So that's cool. And then you got the next competitive tier of tier 3 with the Grass Piles, Heroes, Fluanderies, Runic variants, Punk variants, Trap Tricks, For Hire, Melfi, which are really archetypes. I should really put those in Rogue, to be honest with you, but I'm just going to put them there because that's part of the Runic Sprite archetype thing. And then you got Crystal Beast and Naturia. The rest, Plunder Patrol, you could give or take. You could probably put it at the back of tier 3 or whatever, but what did we say here? 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. You got about 15 to 20 decks total here. Maybe some of the high rogue decks that are viable, that are competitive, that can do something, that you can go on win streaks on and maybe make master. But the rest of them, you're going to need to really hone in your skills, really be creative, really narrow down your deck build. Deck building is huge. Don't forget that. And really make sure everything of your deck is correct. And you got to know exactly how to play your deck. And you also have to know how every other deck plays. And that's the whole thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's what makes it difficult. You got to know what you're playing against, how to play against it, where to hit their choke points. What does your deck do well? What is the strengths of your deck? What are the weaknesses of your deck? You need to know all this stuff. So you can pilot any of these decks and do well. I would just recommend those top 3 tiers as opposed to the Rogue. If you want to have fun, play the Rogue ones. Maybe even play the what the hell are we doing area. But you got about 15, 20 viable decks here. So take a screenshot of it. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Give me feedback. I want to know what you guys think. I want a discussion. I'm going to be doing more videos. I'm going to give you replays of my Labyrinth, of my Punk, of all types of stuff that I've been doing lately. I want to see some of your replays. Send them in to me. Go to Dreadful Gaming on that's my Discord, Dreadful Gaming. Check it out. I am Dreadcast, Dread_cast, both here on YouTube and Twitch. You can catch me all the time live, streaming the game and doing my thing. And appreciate you guys. Appreciate the support. Hopefully next time we'll do some more stuff, fun stuff. Maybe some stuff for the beginners out there. Love beginners. We want to bring new people to the game. The game is fun. Come to the game. It's fun. Trust you, boy. I know. It took a lot. I had to go through some growing pains. But if you do a little research, you get into it a little bit, you'll like it. Build some decks. You'll have fun. And here's the decks. Now you know all the decks. Look them up. Go to masterduelmeta.com. Check them out. Catch y'all next time. Appreciate it. And stay safe, everybody.